Hey everyone, welcome to this video interview. I'm here with Casey Grantham.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just to give a quick intro, Casey actually, he just passed the FTMO challenge using Titan X fully automated. And he did it in like 6 hours. Is that right?
Yep.
This last week?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to get into that story and how he's able to do that. We're also going to go ahead and we're going to share some data with you guys, some really interesting data that actually Casey helped develop the strategy behind this data. And it's incredible. The pass rate for both the challenge, the verification, and then also a post-funded strategy. And we even have a case study that we're going to share using this exact strategy and our backtest data. So really excited to get into that. Also, for those of you who don't already know Casey, he's been a member of our community since, what was it, January 21?
2021. Yep.
Perfect. Casey's been a super valuable member of our community. We're so grateful for him. Always willing to share, help out other members. And he's really good. In my mind, you're like a data scientist. Like,
Yeah.
like you're so good with like Excel spreadsheets and like, mathematics and calculations and like putting it all together. And
Uh-huh.
so, yeah, anyways, thanks so much for being on here, and I'm excited to have you.
Yeah. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I guess first off, if you could just kind of go into and share how you were able to pass a challenge in 6 hours using Titan X.
Okay. So yeah, we went through, or I guess yeah, we went through and developed a strategy used primarily on gold.
Yep.
Well, really, XAU USD.
Yep.
And it's pretty aggressive. So the main takeaway is like you're either going to pass it or fail it within, a couple days, the challenge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's really aggressive. So that's why I was able to pass in 6 hours, but it's kind of nice because you know whether you're going to pass or fail, and you can either move on to verification if there's no minimum days, or, what have you.
Right. Right. And what kind of made you go for the more aggressive approach versus slow and steady?
So I originally was using Titan kind of like the slow and steady way.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard psychologically for me because you could be trading the whole month, and then, the market conditions could be good and then they could shift, and
Right.
your account just gets lost, or you hit EP, equity protection.
Right.
So yeah, I just think you really just need the right market conditions. So if you can like shrink that window down and go hard on like a small time frame, I think you have better chance of success than trying to make it span a whole month.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. And what kind of, I guess, well, I guess without further ado, I think we should get into the data and just kind of show, exactly what you're talking about. Because I think, we actually had this discussion multiple times where, as a company, we're always trying to, approach the markets with a data-driven approach. And I think, you did a lot of back testing, right, before taking the challenge.
Yeah, a lot of back testing, primarily focusing on 2021 back
Yeah.
testing. Just because 2020, I mean, it was a really black swan crazy year.
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen in the markets, but we feel like, or at least I feel like, the most recent data is the most useful data, most relevant data.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you feel like that data that you and the back testing you did, that's really what like gave you the confidence to go ahead and take the live challenge and be able to
Yeah,
pass?
yeah, because I mean, you're watching that graph, simulate through each week, and yeah, it gives you the confidence because you see it pass. Okay, you see it fail, but then next week you pass. So it gives you the confidence to like start one and then keep going.
Right. Right. Totally. Cool. So let me share my screen here.
Okay.
And that way we can show this data. Can you see my spreadsheet?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, perfect. I'll just go ahead and maximize this. Okay. Perfect. So here we are. So this is a spreadsheet that I compiled. Casey and I, we worked on this data together, compiling it. But Casey, it was really you who had the breakthrough to discovering this strategy. And I guess maybe even before we get into the specifics of this data here, maybe you can just kind of explain like what got you to that breakthrough. Like what was kind of your process like to finally discover something that works for you?
Like with the specific settings
Yeah,
strategy.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, Honestly, I just kind of stumbled across it. Like there was nights where I was just back testing Titan X, and I change a little thing here, change a little thing here, change a little thing here, and keep trial and error.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just, I came across these settings. Well, I didn't come across, I kind of figured them out by changing little things here and there. And they just started working. And so,
Yeah.
I went through testing. First, I started testing each month as if you were to start a challenge each month, and then it did really well. So then I was like, okay, let's run week by week. Let's say you start a challenge every Monday, because through my testing, Monday seemed like to be the best day to start a challenge,
Hmm.
at least using gold.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, try starting Mondays and see what the win rate is essentially on the trades.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. That's great. As we can see here, like obviously this is working. So I guess I could even just go through and kind of explain what's here. So this is the FTMO challenge phase. So that's what these three columns here are. So we're showing the week of January, like Casey said, we kind of landed on starting on Monday is best with this gold strategy. That seems to be what works most consistently. So starting on the week of and starting on a Monday, this is the date that it passed or failed, and this is the amount of days it took to pass or fail. And that's another thing we should probably just mention, Casey, is that the settings you use to pass in like 6 hours, it's a modification of these settings that are even more aggressive,
Right.
but designed to help you pass even faster, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. But they have a lower win rate, right? So psychologically it might be harder for some
Yes.
people to trade.
Yes, it does have a lower win rate. I think it's about 10-15% lower, but at least for 2021.
Okay.
So maybe like 65%. Um, yeah, so it does pass faster though.
Pass faster, but not as frequently.
Correct.
Okay, so we go through here, we can see that, there's a couple of weeks where we had 2 fails in a row, but in general, you're passing more than every other week. I mean, definitely more than every other week.
Right.
So there was 42 passes, 16 fails. This is from 2021 through most recently February 14th, 2021 through February 14th of 2022. So 42 passes, 16 fails, 72% pass rate, and it took an average of 8.12 days to pass the FTMO challenge with a 10% max loss limit and a 5% max daily loss limit.
Yeah. And that is calendar days, not trading days, just for those people wondering.
Yes, yes. Then the other thing is here, so FTMO verification / post funded. So we actually decided to use the same settings we use post funded, or sorry, the same settings we use on verification post funded as well, which we can maybe talk about here in a second why we decided to do that. But yeah, so here's the verification stats. Obviously, it's easier for those who aren't familiar. It's easier to pass the verification. You only have to reach 5% of profit target versus 10% in the first phase. And so we're able to pass much faster and easier. So again, there's only a handful of times where you had 2, failed verifications in a row. Otherwise, pretty consistent overall pass rate for the verification phase was 83%. And then, so 49 passes, 10 fails, 83% pass rate. And the average number of days was only 2.92, probably just because of that lower profit target, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's actually the same exact strategy, but we just have lower account take profits, which increases the pass rate and then, decreases the days.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I know some people are going to be asking like, okay, if you're going to use the same strategy that you use for verification post funded, 83% pass rate for the verification phase, that's awesome. But isn't the goal of a funded strategy to basically continue, like keep your funded account and continue to make profits on that? forever, hopefully at least. Why would you use the same strategy when 20% of the time, you're going to be losing that funded account?
Okay, so I hear you because I used to think the same thing. But what changed is doing, which we'll go through later, is the case study.
Yeah.
And if you actually like go harder each week with your account, knowing that you might lose it and go for more percentage, you make more money overall instead of trying to like preserve your account and just, scrape a little bit each month. If you just basically go for 5% a week here, I mean, you can make huge gains.
Yeah,
So
totally.
really, the risk to reward is a lot better for, going for the higher reward.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically we're just trying to take as much as we can from the account until it blows, rather than trying to run so conservatively and avoiding losing the account.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Makes sense. So let's get into this case study, shall we?
Yep.
So what we have here, basically this is following FTMO rules. The goal with this was to have at any given time a maximum of 5 accounts. And what we would do was we would actually hold on to these accounts and only use them once we've lost one of the 5 accounts. So we would try to acquire a maximum of 5 accounts, and then we would just hold on to them until we needed to use them.
Yep.
So that's how it worked. We would never risk profits that we made on one account, before we were able to withdraw those profits. Right. So instead of making, 5K, which is how much you need to make to pass verification, right? We're using the same strategy. So instead of making 5K one week and then trying to make 5K the next week, if you lost the account the next week, then you'd be out, the original 5K that you made. So,
right. Which would be very tough psychologically.
Yeah, totally. To have that profit and then just never be able to realize it.
Yeah. Like, oh, I shouldn't have traded.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, multiple accounts as well. So we'd start maximum 1 challenge per week. So in that way, to kind of stagger the risk, start maximum 1 verification per week, trade max 1 funded account per week, and then realize and withdraw profits max 1 time per 2 weeks. Okay, cool. And actually, I was going to say, Casey, this is considering the minimum days rule. This is considering that it actually takes 3 weeks to process a withdrawal from FTMO. We messaged FTMO on their live chat, and they said, yeah, you can withdraw every 2 weeks, but it takes another 1 to 3 business days after that, to process the withdrawal before you can start trading again on the account. So
yeah, and they have to issue you new credentials too. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually forgot about that part. So anyways, this is considering all of that, and still ended up doing pretty well. I mean, we had, I don't actually remember how much the challenge cost for FTMO. I think it's close to $600, maybe just a little bit more.
It's around 600.
Okay. So 16 challenges taken, 12 times funded. Our expenses were this total spent in challenge fees over the course of this, 13, 14 month case study, 13 and a half. Refunds given were 2,400. Profit generated was 165,000. 80% is the prop firm split. And so we take home 124,000 in, like I said, 13 and a half months.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, totally. So what gets you excited about this, Casey? Like why, like this is pretty much how you're planning on using this strategy, to not only take challenges and pass challenges, but also post funded, correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, what's cool is like, this is pretty much like a baseline. And, if you find other prop firms that have easier rules or no minimum days, like everything is just going to be improved in your favor, which is awesome. And you could even have more than 5 accounts. You could get 10 accounts. You could get as many accounts as you want through all these different prop firms and run this strategy. And another thing that gets me excited is if you scroll down to the bottom there,
Sorry, Casey, I was just going to show them the little
Oh yeah.
prop firm summary that you put together.
Yes. So these are the main four we're considering based on using Titan X and using this strategy. Yeah, I mean, you can see all the different things there, and the ones highlighted in green are kind of like the best, out of those four. But
So like, for example, here, the trading capital, they have a max loss percentage of 12%, whereas FTMO is only 10%, and a max daily loss of 6%, whereas FTMO is only 5%. And you only have to reach 8% profit instead of 10%. So like, way easier to pass this challenge comparatively, which is only going to increase your pass rate, is only going to increase your verification pass rate, and only going to increase
your funded rate too.
Amount of, your funded rate. Exactly.
Yep.
And same thing with True Forex Fund, easier on the challenge verification. So,
yep.
So yeah, basically I think all those numbers we were looking at, just with other prop firms that have easier rules for their challenges, these numbers just get even better.
Right. Yeah, that's
which tie into these numbers as well.
Yep. That's what's great, is this is like the low end,
Yeah. So Casey, talk about psychology. I know when we were talking about, okay, what would be the best way to trade this strategy post funded? Something we talked about was consistency, and how psychologically it's going to be much easier to go for consistent profits rather than bigger profits at one time, but more spread out, I guess, and more random.
Yeah. So if you look at that right column, you have the weekly profits. And you can see, there's some weeks where it's 0 and then some weeks where it's 5,000. But our goal is to try to make it as consistent as possible. Originally, I was trying to run all 4 or 5 accounts, at once as you got them, which, you'd have some weeks where you're making huge gains, but then you'd have like a 3-month dry spell because all your accounts blew and you have nothing else to trade until you pass more challenges.
Right.
So yeah, we really found that just running one a week and going for that 5K a week gives you the best odds of making the most money while also being consistent too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you've taught, if you can't be consistent and you can't trade it psychologically, like it doesn't matter how much money you could make if you can't do it. Your brain won't let you.
Yeah, totally. And that's why like the most profitable strategy isn't always the best strategy, because if psychologically it's too hard to trade, then you're not going to be able to trade it and you'll never realize those profits, even if on paper it's the most profitable.
Yep. And it's taken me over like a year of trading to realize that and grasp that, like, for myself. So yeah, it's really true.
Yeah. I guess just on that topic of psychology, I know there's going to be a lot of people that see this video, they see these stats like, wow, I can get funded. In fact, let's just show what our funded rate is right here. So let's just do that. So it's just going to be this percentage times this percentage. So 60, that rounded down. 60, is that right? 60.14%?
Yeah, that should be, because 70% of 80 should be about 60. Yeah.
Yep, there we go. So basically you're funded over 60% of the time, about 60% of the time, right? And so I know there's going to be a lot of people that see that and they're like, wow, that's amazing. I can get funded. And then I'm just going to, make all this money without really realizing, like, I think just like any other trading strategy, it's going to come down to psychology. And like, are you able to handle losing a funded account? Are you able to handle, coughing up the money to take multiple challenges to fund multiple to start challenges on multiple accounts?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, like what do you think with this strategy is going to be most challenging for people actually trading it live?
Well, quick note about the funded rate. You calculated like 60%, which, that's if you took a challenge and a verification every week. But if you look at like our case study, it's 18/12, which is actually 67% rounded. So, I mean, it could be even better, live market, because those gaps where you're like waiting for something to pass or you're waiting for your withdrawal, you could be missing those fail weeks or past weeks. So really it just kind of I mean, it can only go up from the 60%, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So what did you ask
So I just asked, what do you think, for people that are looking at these numbers with green eyes and just, ready to go live with it? I mean, what do you think is going to be maybe, some challenges with it, trading this strategy, like psychologically, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. The hardest part, I mean, if you look at the case study, you'll see that there's times where, okay, you take a challenge, you pass a challenge, and now you're just holding it. And then, okay, you're ready to use it. And so you go and use it, and then it blows, and you never even get a payout after holding that challenge for, 2-3 months. That could definitely be tough psychologically.
Yeah.
But what helps is, okay, well, you have these other 4 accounts kind of just ready to go. So next week, you just pull one of those and run one of those, and then take a challenge and try to renew your one that blew. So
Yeah.
we tried to like think of all these different ways to help psychologically make it easier.
Like I'm looking at this, like right here, this stint. So like if you were only trading one account, like
Yeah.
you'd be going however many months this is, this is what, March to August, like
Yeah. 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months without making anything, basically.
Yeah. And you could totally be caught in that exact section of trading. Like it happens all the time to people. So
Even with this high of a, pass rate for the challenge and 83% for verification, and
yeah.
even at the 60% funded rate, I mean, over half the time you could still only trading one account go, what was this, 5 months without making profits. And then look, finally you break out of that. Yes, I made 5K, withdraw. Oh, actually I thought the next week you'd lose it, but I mean, 2 weeks, you only withdraw twice and then you've lost the account again, and you have to repeat that again. So
yeah. So I think stacking the accounts in your favor is helpful, because you don't have to wait to take another challenge, wait to take another verification. You already have ones ready to go. So
yeah, totally.
And a correction to what I said, I think if you go down to like the funded rate, I think I said it was 18 over 12, or no. Yeah, I said 18 over 12. It's actually 16. So that's 75%. So that's great.
Yep. Even better.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, we used every tick for our back testing. So we tried to make the, back testing as strict as possible. We tried to match the same spread as FTMO, which we saw to be around 10 points or one pip. But even with, back testing, there's inherent limitations. And so, I mean, it could be lower than this. So this is no guarantee that you're definitely going to have a 60%, funded rate going forward. Like it could be closer to 50%. And I think psychologically you have to prepare yourself for that. But like to your point, Casey, like having multiple accounts can really help with that. And yeah, just kind of, staggering your risk and keeping things consistent post-funded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at December 13th, if you started challenges back then, like if you scroll to the left, you could get 4 fails in a row, and that's totally realistic with this strategy. So you just have to be ready to accept that. Cause I mean, look right above that, you could have 5 passes in a row. So, you just have to basically, I like to think of it as like a treadmill that's just already running, and you just have to like jump on and get in the system, get it going.
Cool. I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of this too, we didn't just test Mondays. We tested Tuesdays and Wednesdays. In fact, I could even, here's Tuesdays and Wednesdays. This was only to the end of, what was it, 2021? Yeah, this is only to the end of 2021. And we could see, those last 3 weeks of the year on Tuesday and Wednesday, just fail as well. So that seemed to be a pretty consistent thing, regardless of what day you started on. And if you took these out, the pass rate is closer to 80%. So, Monday was the best performing, but like Tuesday or Wednesday could probably work as well.
Yep.
This is for post-funded, by the way. This is this is for verification, I should say. So the pass rate for verification. But yeah, I mean, I think we kind of said between ourselves, like, we probably wouldn't trade the month of December, or only the first week of December, if anything. Right.
Yeah, it just gets too manipulated, especially with gold. I mean, everyone's closing positions or, what have you, opening positions.
Yeah. And even that first week of January as well, we saw pretty consistently. I meant to show the 2020 data, which I don't have on hand. But even in 2020, we saw the same thing, right? Where near the end of the year, it would just fail a lot. So,
yep.
Cool. All right. Well, Casey, any other kind of last words of advice for anyone who's, looking at this and wants to be successful with this strategy?
I would say, okay, words of advice. I would say if you, get access to the settings, go run back test yourself, start your own spreadsheet. If you're serious about it, go week by week, run it each week, because that'll build your confidence in the system. And if you are treating it like a business, you have to spend the time and make sure your product is good. And, if you just buy a live challenge, dive in, and then fail your first week, you're just going to be like, oh, this doesn't work. So, you have to give it time and you have to learn how it works, watch it in visual mode, see how the trading works. It's a very specific strategy that's really different. So, it's not going to build up drawdown like traditionally certain cost averaging will. It's going to get in and out quick, with all of your positions. So just back testing really.
Yeah. I love how you said backtest on visual mode, because I think that's so important. Like, you watch it on visual mode, and you can kind of, it's kind of like a simulation of you watching the charts, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that there's times where this will hit EP like 3-4 times before finally passing.
Yep.
And I think if you don't realize that, and you hadn't back tested this yourself and watched the charts dip before finally going up, you could be in a live challenge and be freaking out and like, holy cow, it's not working. When, us having gone through and watched this strategy so many times, like, we know, like, hey, it's normal.
Yeah.
And just let it do its thing. So
yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, there's at least a dozen times where it hits EP twice in a row, boom, boom, but then, works its way back up and passes. So you just can't freak out, and you have to trust the system.
Like this one right here, it took 23 days to pass, calendar days.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like this, in this case, I mean, this probably hit EP, 3, 4, maybe 5 times. I don't know, but it came back and eventually passed, but you just had to be patient with it.
Yep.
So, and again, you can have ones that pass the very next day, like here, and you can have ones that take much longer to pass, but the average is this. So anyways, you can, I think that's really good advice. Back test it yourself, watch it on visual mode, and really understand, like, prepare yourself psychologically for this particular strategy. Otherwise, you'll be on to the next one before you know it, and you won't be around to realize and deserve the profits and the benefits that can come from this strategy, which we saw, can be huge. So.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, that was it. I mean, I guess one other point just to say is, this is only trading 5 accounts. If you had even more accounts, this could go up. If you did 200K challenges instead, this could go up. I mean, So.
Yeah. And another, to your point, I mean, you could even do 50K challenges and scale everything down by a factor of half, and it'll work the same. Like,
one other point I just wanted to say too was, we're going to continue to monitor this and, see, because, like you said, Casey, we're basically trying to adapt to current market conditions. And so that's why we're placing a heavier emphasis on most recent data versus data farther back. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to continue to monitor this and keep this spreadsheet updated week by week. And if we ever see more than 4 fails in a row, or even 2 fails in a row, it may be time to reoptimize. And that way we can always stay, current with this strategy. Because it is very aggressive. I mean, these percentages here, these pass rates, like funded rates, it's insane. I mean, it really is. And so, we don't expect this to be the case for the next 10 years, for example. Like,
Right.
we're going to have to re-optimize. We're going to have to stay on top of it. So that's pretty much the plan going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, to add on to that, like I've tested it in 2020, and even though that was such a crazy year, I mean, the pass rate for challenges was still 60%. So like it's still, it doesn't just detonate. It's, it's not super curve fitted to this year.
Yeah.
It's still viable, but the most, like you said, the most recent data is the most useful data.
Right. Right. Perfect. Well, I think that's it, Casey. Anything else? That pretty much it.
Another point I did wanted to make is,
Yeah.
with this strategy, what's cool is like you could use it just to pass a challenge, and then you could do verification however you want. You could do post funded however you want, but just to have help on the challenge, I think is big. So
Totally.
yeah, I mean, you could use this however you want, but yeah, just giving ideas.
Yep. Totally. And I think, at least for me and as a company, we're going to continue to come out with post-funded strategies, which, and other, challenge strategies as well, which you can use either in conjunction, so that you're kind of more diversified. Maybe one week, one strategy fails, but another strategy doesn't, or vice versa. Maybe for post-funded, we come out with one that's even more aggressive, or one that's much less aggressive, but more consistent, and you're not as likely to lose the account. I mean, and so kind of to your point, Casey, like you can use you can use this strategy as a tool, as part of your own strategy, or as part of a greater strategy. I mean, however you want to use it. But just the fact that we can pass challenges at 72%, pass the verification phase at 83%, get funded 60% of the time. What this also means post-funded is you can target 5K or 5% of your funded account any given week, and you have basically an 83% chance of realizing that, which
That's big.
it's huge. It's huge, right? I mean, 5K, that's 5K in a week, let alone a month, is enough to change somebody's life.
For sure. People go for 5% over like a few months, I mean.
Yeah. So, and that's just further, to drive home that point again of, instead of trying to be so conservative and make your settings invincible to handle anything that could happen in the market, rather just go aggressive and, milk the account for as much as you can, as long as you can. And then when when you lose it, no worries, you have a backup, and that's kind of the advanced risk management strategy that we've illustrated here in this case study. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, Casey, for being on and taking the time. Really appreciate it. And thanks so much for sharing. Obviously, I think this is going to be super helpful to a lot of people, and I think also spark some more masterminding. I mean, Titan X as a tool, it's very versatile. You can use it for all sorts of different strategies and configurations. So I think there's just going to be a lot more that come from this. But I mean, to already to have this as kind of a new standard, it's really exciting. And yeah, just looking forward to continuing to test and to trade this live together, and continue to develop more strategies as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I encourage people to, back test and try things on their own, try their own modifications. Maybe they'll come up with something, we're not claiming this is perfect. So there's always room for improvement,
Exactly. Cool. All right. Thanksy. All right, Casey, thanks again for being on. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks for having me.